Spring is less than a month away. Many of us are itching to get outside. Joining us for more on what there is to do in the great outdoors is Jenna Bartja, Community Activation Manager for Visit Nebraska. Jenna, what new or exciting events taking place in Nebraska right now?
Hi, Paul, and thanks for having me back again. As you know, this time of year in Nebraska, as folks in the tourism industry, we all are turning our eyes toward the Central Platte River. We are anxiously awaiting the start of the annual Sandhill Crane Migration. Every March, about 1 million sandhill cranes will stop over along the Platte River in central Nebraska during their annual spring migration north. It is the second largest single species animal migration on Earth. Such a big deal. Second only to the wildebeest in the plains of Africa. Millions of birds. It's a big spectacle to behold. And this annual event draws thousands of tourists and bird nerds from near and far to witness the migration take place.
It's truly a sight to behold, and not just cranes and tourists, right?
That's right, Paul. You've got snow geese and ducks. If you're lucky, you might even catch some glimpses of critically endangered whooping cranes that'll join the flock sometimes, not to mention the other wildlife that respond to the migrations. When I've viewed the cranes, I've almost always also witnessed predators, things like bald eagles or coyote. And then, of course, they're drawn in by these masses of cranes looking for that opportunistic meal, right? Nature, it has this incredible biological clock. It always impresses me that these animals, they instinctively know when this migration is taking place, just like the cranes instinctively know that it's time to migrate, and they gather around to wait for a feast.
Jenna, what brings the cranes here to Nebraska? Also, what keeps the birds coming back year after year?
The migration is truly an amazing cycle. It's actually been happening for literally millennia. The sandhill cranes we see today, they have one of the longest fossil histories of any living bird, which essentially means that we've just been able to date them back for many, many years, with the oldest dating fossilized record dating back about 2.5 million years. So these birds are old creatures of the earth. That is almost twice as old as the remains of most current living bird species. They are essentially living dinosaurs. That is a very apt term for them. Even though sandhill cranes have been around a really long time, their migration pattern hasn't really changed. They've been migrating through that central flyway, which runs right through central Nebraska, since almost time immemorial, and that's remained virtually unchanged. For a little bit of perspective, the Platte River, it only dates back to this area about 10,000 years. The fossil records place these cranes here millions of years prior to the Platte River even existing. So the cranes have been using this route for migration for a long, long time, and it's just kind of ingrained in their DNA.
Pretty amazing, and these birds have seen a lot of changes over the generations. Jenna, why stop in Nebraska?
Their diet was once largely comprised of plant and animal foods that would be found in wet meadows. Think of wetland areas, low-lying bodies of water. They would have been able to find and forage things like seeds or tubers of plants, grubs, earthworms, snails, small amphibians, small reptiles, even some small rodents potentially. But in just the last 150 years, they have had to really adapt to the influences of man. This includes things like introduction of cattle and row cropping and just the sprawling urban communities that have been built. Today, funnily enough, about 90% of their diet has been replaced by grain waste. And that's just the grain that's been left in the surrounding agricultural fields around the Central Platte. During the day, you'll see flocks of the sandhill cranes spread out for miles, just kind of foraging in cornfields, fattening up on waste grain, and this is just kind of helping them to fuel their journey north. The Platte River still does play a pretty important role for the birds, though, and that's in the form of protection. They all will return to the river in the evenings, and they'll roost there overnight, primarily using those shallow waters over sandbars to kind of like stand on the sandbars. There may be ankle deep in water, but that allows them protection from predators that won't typically venture out into the water at night.
Right now we're talking with Community Activation Manager Jenna Bartja of Visit Nebraska, learning more about the upcoming migration of sandhill cranes. Jenna, where is the best place for folks to get a glimpse of these resilient and beautiful creatures?
Probably the most popular viewing locations are from blinds. And blinds are just kind of these very rustic, very simplistic houses that have a slot along the side for people to view out. So they're just kind of a subtle way for people to view cranes without disturbing these creatures. Blinds along the Platte River, either a morning or an evening blind tour, are really popular. The cranes will arrive in the early evening and they'll depart at sunrise to go feed on that grain, like I was saying, during the daytime. The Ian Nicholson Audubon Center at Rose Sanctuary and Crane Trust, the first is in Kearney, the second Crane Trust is in Grand Island. Both are really well known for their premier blind viewing experiences. Blind tours also cater to a variety of mobilities and age groups. So this makes them a really great option for the whole family to take part in the experience.
Jenna, what can someone expect from a blind tour experience? Also, what should they consider bringing to make that experience most comfortable, also fulfilling?
Most blind tour experiences are between 2 and 3 hours long. You'll want to arrive a little early. Your host will want to give a safety and etiquette talk before the viewing. This is important. You'll get most of the information that you need just in that little briefing. From what I can share from personal experience, it is February in Nebraska now, and even if you plan your trip in March, which is when the bulk of the cranes will be here, you are going to want to expect cold weather, especially in that early morning and late evening time frame. So the biggest thing is just to dress warmly. You'll want to prioritize layers, a big puffy coat, definitely hat and gloves. Those are all really strongly recommended. It's also important to wear sturdy yet comfortable walking shoes, especially if you're doing an early morning tour. The sun might not even come up yet, so you might be navigating to the blind itself in low lighting. It'll be a short distance to walk, but you'll just want to make sure that you've got good shoes on, that you can be sure-footed, and make sure you get to the blind safely. Some of the newer blinds are heated, which is very luxurious, but not all of them are. Just ensuring you're dressing for the temperature outside is really essential. Some people will bring hand warmers. Sometimes they'll bring a thermos with their favorite hot beverage in. If you get hungry easily, bring a snack that you can open and eat quietly. Although not necessary, another great thing to bring is binoculars. The blinds are right along the river, so you're not going to have trouble seeing the cranes with your naked eye, but binoculars can be really helpful in getting you a closer look at just the details on the cranes, their behavior, and maybe some of the other wildlife I mentioned that gather for the event, like bald eagles might be on the other riverbank, roosting in trees. Coyotes or foxes might be scouting the banks of the river. Or maybe, again, you'll want to get a closer look at a hidden gem like a rare whooping crane that might be kind of hidden amidst the big flock of birds that you're going to see roosted in the river. The most important thing in preparing for a blind tour, maybe only second, not even second to that being warm, is just be respectful. Come with an open mind. Come with a willingness to be respectful both of the birds and to your fellow blind mates. Typically, they keep these blind tours small, usually groups of no more than 10 to 20, sometimes as big as 30, but mostly small. You're just going to be asked to be quiet in the blind. You want the experience to be able to be absorbed by everybody. So while you are allowed to whisper in the blind to communicate, you're also going to be asked to utilize any viewing aids or photography equipment that you might want to bring on their lowest sound settings and without any flash.
Sounds like quite the experience. Jenna, where can people book a blind or find out more information?
Well, that was a lot of information that I just threw at you, but you can find even more online. So there are opportunities for both public and private viewing experiences and guided tours as far west as North Platte, actually. All of these, I think, are most conveniently cataloged in one place, and that is NebraskaFlyway.com. The website was born from a collaboration between the tourism entities along the Central Flyway in Nebraska, and they just wanted to bring visitors the most comprehensive listing of crane viewing locations and experiences. So it also features nearby accommodations and dining options, which makes it truly a one-stop shop for trip planning to see this marvelous migration. For more information on what to see and do throughout our great state and to seek out information about other exciting upcoming events, you can always check out visitnebraska.com. So if you're coming to see the cranes, NebraskaFlyway.com, we also encourage you to visit visitnebraska.com.
Thank you for joining us, Jenna. That's Jenna Bartja, Community Activation Manager for Visit Nebraska, with some great information on getting the full experience of seeing the annual Sandhill Crane Migration. In addition to checking out visitnebraska.com and nebraskaflyway.com, you can also like the Facebook page of Visit Nebraska. I'm Paul Perkins on the Rural Radio Network.